Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Centimetre Perfect AFL podcast. We have made it through 4 rounds of the Premiership season, 4 3/4, of course, if you count opening round. And Liam, I don't know about you, I'm not feeling 22, but what I am feeling is it's time for the worst round of the season. Everyone rejoice. We're packing up the carnival. We're going to the middle of nowhere to play in some paddock if you're poor old Fremantle and Richmond. It's gather round. It's still a thing.
Yeah.
Incredibly, it's still a thing.
Jesse, people love gather round now. I think you might be one of the few haters of the gather round.
It's terrible. I'm sorry. I know that people love it, but you know what? I never thought I'd say this. Apart from height, Jack Higgins and I now have something else really strongly in common. Neither of us are big fans of Adelaide. Neither of us, by the sound of things, particularly big fans of gather round. Although I don't really play COD, so I don't know really what I'd do. Maybe run back to Melbourne. If I was in his position, just do like a giant out and back from Adelaide to Melbourne, maybe via Warrnambool, say good day to some family, maybe via Geelong, pick up some acreage. Who knows what I'd do? Maybe extend the run and get all the way to Poowong and say hi to John Newcomb's family. Wouldn't that be fun?
It sounds great, Jesse. That's what you've been training for. That's what you've been training for all these years. You're not drinking because you're doing a half marathon. You're on a Poowong. That's what's happening. That's what's happening now. Jesse, where can people find us? Tell the lovely people.
At Poowong. No, they can also find us at CMPerfect_AFL on Instagram, social media. That's really our only home on social media, but you can find us at the Centimetre Perfect AFL podcast on your preferred podcasting platform, which is, of course, Spotify, if you're like me, Apple, if you're kind of like me, and Amazon, if you're like Dave. But wherever you find it, make sure you go over there, give us a listen. Also, hit subscribe over on YouTube where you can catch our exclusive weekly tipping competition, which I'm now banning from discussing in the main episode, the Just the Tips podcast. I also blame Ken Hinkley for this. So Port Adelaide are also now banned from conversation indefinitely on this podcast.
Fair enough too. This is what you'll find, dear listener, when things aren't going Jesse's way, this is what he'll do. He'll just ban it.
I just find excuses, complain, moan.
That's all right. Don't we all, in some capacity? Even those people out there who are like, not me, I take accountability for everything. No, you don't. Stop lying to yourself. Jesse.
Real.
Yeah, I know. Crikey Moses, where'd that come from?
Tough day.
Oh, I've been pent up at home. I've done myself a mischief in my ankle, pent up at home, and now this is my release, apparently, of all this energy that I've got built up in my body. Got to release it at you, Jesse, and onto the listener. I'm sorry. But we have 8 games to talk about. But before we talk about the 8 games, some pretty nice games this week, some pretty boring games this week as well.
Yes.
Let's have a quick talk. A bit of a light one on the news front this week, which is fine because we don't always have to talk about news.
Can I just hit pause on your here before you go on?
Yeah.
Thank God.
Thank God for what?
I'm so sick of the manufactured weekly drivel that we get. Chad Warner, what property did he look at in Perth this week? Did he skip his usual flat white order in Sydney? That must confirm he's going to Fremantle. If it's not that, it's something else.
Yeah.
This has been nice. I'm sure that Tradies and Gettable and all those podcasts will come out later in the week. And look, if you like, I'm not knocking it. They are good podcasts. They're of good quality. They're well produced. And, for the most part, they're usually right, except for, they're not going to pick him Mitch, which was quite funny. But yes, it is nice to have a lighter week on the news front because I actually got a sense the only thing we're going to talk about today in the news section is actually a story rather than something, Oscar Allen, something, which is usually what we have to talk about in this segment. Yeah,
100%. I think last week we did quite well with the whole Tassie thing. Took it out of the scope of what you usually get in the footy sphere when it comes to news. Because you're right, a lot of the time they're just trying to find stuff to talk about. But this is actually something that is quite interesting. And it involves one of our favourite players over here in the West. Isn't he, Jesse? Everyone loves him. I'm pretty sure every West Australian's like, Harley Reid, love that guy. He's
the mayor of the herdsman markets.
Yeah, exactly. He's the best. He's the best. So much so, the Eagles are trying very, very hard to keep him here. Jesse, what's gone and happened? What have the Eagles done?
So it's been reported today that 2 offers have been tabled for Harley Reid.
Mm.
First smacking of desperation in this engage. First offer is for 3 years. Second offer is for 5 years. Now, the latter would take him through to free agency in 2031 and would be around $2 million a season. Or I think at least hitting a peak of $2 million a season, which is a lot of money.
Yeah,
that would make him, as it currently stands, the first $2 million a season player. Whether someone gets in the way in between that and takes that crown off him remains to be seen. Jack Bowie exists.
Mm-hmm.
You never know. But it does seem like wherever Harley does end up, whether that's staying at West Coast, going to his two most likely Victorian suitors in Essendon and Hawthorn, or going to GWS per their banner on Sunday, it does seem like he's going to be attracting a Godfather offer wherever he goes. Now, Liam, I pose this question to you. Let's say Harley signs a dotted line to 2031.
Yep.
Putting aside all the fact he's not had a good season, and we're signing him based on potential in this scenario. So you drafted number one, you believe in Harley Reid, you're signing him based on the electricity he showed last year as a rookie. Is the $2 million a season valid to be building a rebuild around? Because what we're seeing now more and more, Liam, is we're seeing 3-year rebuilds become 5. You look at North Melbourne as a key example of this. They have struggled to rebuild and get out of that bottom 4 for quite a while now. You see a lot of teams, I think you can throw Essendon in this mix, St Kilda, probably the two biggest ones in this regard, where they can build serviceable lists that might push into a final spot, but ultimately they're lacking that ability to regenerate the list quickly enough to keep a guy like Zach Merritt around for a premiership.
Yeah.
Or, you can throw Steele in for St Kilda if you feel like it. So I guess my question here is, you're talking $2 million. Now, the salary cap is going up with the new TV rights deal. So that needs to be taken into account.
Yeah.
But what you're sacrificing here is you're sacrificing your likely ability to attract, I'll say, multiple big money Western Australian players home, which has always been a big ploy of the Western Australian clubs, their ability to attract talent. So you speak of Chad Warner in that regard. You want to be able to get guys like Sam Taylor if their heads are turned to a move home. Cozzy Pickett is reportedly very interested in coming back to WA as well. So, you want these guys to be gettable in terms of your financial situation. Do you think the $2 million a season for a player of Harley Reid's potential, and I'm emphasizing potential here, is a good deal?
I don't. I see what you're saying with the potential side of things, but I think when you look at it, let's do a comparison, right? If you've got someone like Chad Warner, who is can be lured away from Sydney to come back home, who is tried and true, that's your $2 million a year player. That's where that money should be going to. Potential shouldn't be top tier. Potential should always be mid to upper tier if you really believe in them. This is my opinion. I don't run a football team. I don't know what I'm talking about. But if I was, I would say that if you're going to offer Harley the whole shebang just to stay here, I kind of feel like he has to earn that. And I don't think he's earned that yet. I feel like if he was showing some sign of, wanting to improve and wanting to get better, and of course, this is just us talking as fans. We've got no idea what he does at training. I'm sure he trains the lights out. I'm sure he does really well. But to offer him a top deal just to keep him here on the basis that he could be good is risky. And I think that's the biggest thing for me. It's the risk of it. Because if Harley has a year, if he kicks off for the rest of the year, I would still probably have the same take. He's only 2 years in. He's still got a long way to go to prove himself across a number of years. It's risky. It'll be really risky. And I don't know if it's worth that risk for the Eagles, to be honest. I understand. I feel like there's a little bit of pride in this as well. I feel like there's a little bit of pride for the Eagles who are like, no, we got Harley at number one. Talk from day one. Obviously, the pressure was on him last year. Talk from day one was, he wants to go home. He doesn't want to be there, like literally immediately. I'm not sure if that was the news or just you, but it could have been a mixture of the two. But it seemed like straight away there was always links of him going back home immediately.
It didn't help that he started dating a Victorian-based AFLW player just about straight away.
Yeah, well, young love. What do? You can't help that. That's just going to happen. Well, apparently that's part of the deal too, potentially. Bringing the misso over here to play as well. Who knows? I don't know. I just think that they're going too hard too early, I think, on Harley. I think that they need to probably just assess it. Give it some time to assess. And I know they probably don't. Well, no, they do have the luxury of time. They've got a whole another year of his contract still to go. It's not like they're being forced into this deal this year. I understand the idea of wanting to lock him down, but to go top dollar straight away, I mean, if I was Harley, I'd probably take it because he probably wouldn't get that elsewhere, to be honest with you. What are your thoughts, Jesse?
I'm going to use an analogy for my thoughts here because, and this is actually quite useful because your last point about the contract situation leads into mine. You know when you go onto you get like a prize wheel from like an online app or like the wheel at the footy that you can handball at and you get a bunch of prizes turning around. So imagine one of those, right? Mm. Now imagine in this little turning wheel, you've got 4 slices of the wheel. Mm-hmm. 2 are winning slices, 2 are losing slices, but they're not divided equally, and I'm going to explain that now. The first winning scenario, and I'm going to make this the thinnest scenario of the lot, is Harley Reid gets his 5-year extension, gets $2 million a season, turns out to be the player that West Coast almost need him to be. So is that a possibility? Absolutely. 100%. And there's a reason he went pick 1. That is absolutely within the remit of possibility, but I'd argue it's the smaller slice of your wheel. Your second winning scenario, which I'd say is probably, and I don't want to put percentages on these because that creates a bit of messiness, but let's say for rough visual comparison, 5% slice of the wheel is the first scenario, 15% is this scenario, which is Harley demands a trade at the end of the year or before the end of the year, and you get a big pick and or person package from Essendon or Hawthorn or whoever for Harley Reid. Potentially that can be a winning hand for West Coast. Now you get into the 2 losing hands. Losing hand number 1, Harley gets his 3 or 5 year deal, doesn't matter which one, and things don't pan out the way West Coast hope. You're then looking at a player who's going to be on a minimum, I think 1.6 is the money talk for the 3-year deal. That's a significant amount of salary cap. Now, West Coast do have the advantage of having players like Tim Kelly, like Jeremy McGovern, like Liam Duggan, like Oscar Allen, potentially, who will be sliding off bigger contracts in the coming years. So the impact may not be catastrophic on their cap situation, but if Harley doesn't turn out to be the player they need him to be, that's still a dragnet on their overall position in a rebuild. So that's your first loss sum scenario. Your second scenario, I think, is catastrophic for West Coast. And that is, you don't sign Harley, he plays next year, and he forces his way back at the end of 26. So you're talking restricted free agency. You're not going to get pick 1 as compo. You might get pick 3, you might get pick 4. He might not have a good year in 26, and you might be looking at something like pick 6 or pick 7. Now, it is tied to compensation, but we've seen how quickly the AFL are willing to change those rules. Yeah. So actually saying with any confidence, Harley will get pick 2 compo on the basis of being given $1.7 million a year by Essendon, I can't say that with any certainty. Right now, if it was to happen at this moment, based on last year, probably. But they're not going to give pick 1. Pick 1 will not be ever used as a combo pick in free agency, I don't think. So you're looking at best to pick 2. So you're essentially downgrading someone you've invested 3 years of time in. You've sacked a coach, at least one coach in the middle of that rebuild for him, and a coach that I think has backed Harley in a way I don't think many others could. I really feel like Simpson divided West Coast fans, and I understand that. But in terms of asset protection, I think he got Harley Reid in a way that McWalter either hasn't or won't at this stage. And that may end up being another dragnet on this contract situation. But I think there's a real scenario where Harley does go back at the end of, after the conclusion of the 2026 season. If that happens, that's a big blow for West Coast because you're not getting his value unless he does genuinely just not improve and stagnates, which I do find somewhat hard to believe. Like, he is better than what we've seen for the most part of the start of the season.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think there's obviously improvement. And he is 19, and people need to keep that in perspective too. But the 3-year contracts for rookies, I think, is a good idea in principle. This is for top 20 picks. 3-year contract for rookies in the top 20 is a good idea in principle. But if you have a player that you know is going to leave, like had an interstate club picked up Harry Sheasel, who made it pretty clear he wanted to be in Victoria, as I understand it, he would just have ended up going back.
Yeah.
So really, it begs the question of, well, you're better off having them for 2 of the 3 years and trading them for whatever you can get, knowing you're still probably not going to get max value, but you're going to get more than you'd be looking at via restricted free agency.
Yeah. Now, it'd be interesting to see how it all plays out. And like, you kind of raised a point within all that, saying like he's going to get better. It's just not a Harley sledge session. It's just like based on what we've seen and what we think is, because he's a good player. But I don't know. There's something about his style at the moment that he's just got to.
Harley Reid has the potential to be a generational player.
Yeah, 100%.
I think the fear is for West Coast supporters is the other players in the competition. There's one I really want to talk about later in this podcast. Other players in and around his development age look like they're either well ahead of him for not a lot of time difference, or have gone past him in the off season. But we'll talk about that later. There's one player I particularly want to bring that up in later in the show. But Liam, unless there's any other news that you've recollected, shall we talk about 8 games of varying quality?
Not yet.
Okay.
What are your thoughts, Jesse? Got some gather round jerseys on the screen here, real quick. Got the Gold Coast beautiful. Look at this beautiful thing. And obviously, if you're on the podcast, I'll try and describe it to you. It's the Suns jersey. It's lovely pink cream coral color with the Suns S in the middle. Looks fantastic. What do you reckon, Jesse? Does it look pretty good?
I really don't like it.
Don't you? Why?
It looks like someone accidentally stained their Guernsey with strawberry milk, and it's just not coming out. And they've put it through the wash of the try. This will be great, though, in a year's time when this is on sale for $20 at Gym Kid, and I need new Guernseys to run in.
Yeah.
Great pickup.
What about the Sydney one? Just a basic white with the Sydney Harbour House, Sydney Opera House in red through the middle. Pretty basic. What do you reckon?
You know, I like it. I'm a big believer in simplicity is key. And you know what? I love the Nike tick. I think that just makes the Guernsey look so clean and almost like a throwback to the 90s with it, I think, in a lot of ways. I like that. That's a winner for me. It's
a winner for Jesse. What about this? Speaking of throwbacks, what about this bad boy?
No. Immediately no.
This is the Eagles one, everyone. So just so you know, they've gone right back to the early 90s with their design, the old Eagle.
Last year, their 94 callback was brilliant.
Yeah.
This is like if Woodvale West Torrens were going bankrupt and had like 5 minutes to design a Guernsey and just threw it out there. It's a shocker. I'm sorry, West Coast fans. You've got some amazing Guernseys in your background. Talk the 2000s Orange Eagle. You talk all the stuff through the 90s.
Yeah.
This is not one of them. Bring back your Orange Eagle. Don't bring back this. Send this to wherever Birds of Tokyo CD is at the bottom of Lath Lane and just keep it there. It's not worth seeing the light of day. I'm very sorry. No wonder Harley's being courted by the clubs.
One thing remains constant for the Eagles jersey, that Hungry Jack's proud and true right in the front, as has been the case since time and memorial. That's all, Jesse. I just thought I'd bring those up and have a bit of a gander with you. I thought a bit of fun in it.
Is there a St Kilda one too?
Oh, wait a second. Yes. I think this is it. I think this is the one. I was trying to find other teams. It doesn't seem like that many teams have got them out this year.
We're doing ours for round 14 because we can't share colours with Richmond.
Oh, are we? So we're doing the stealth mode in 14?
Yep.
Fair enough. But this is the St Kilda one. Just the black and red stripes. I don't think I've ever seen them wear this before. Seems like another throwback to the collar as well.
Yeah, it's turn of the century and not the 20th. But in saying that, I like it. And I actually think it's quite nice. You couldn't wear this against Essendon, but
no,
I do think it's nice. And you know what? I actually reckon there's a couple of St Kilda players that this will really suit. I think Liam Henry with the long sleeve would kill this look.
Is he back?
Well, he was playing for Sandringham in the VFL last week, so potentially.
Oh, fingers crossed for Liam. It's been a while. I think Adelaide has one as well, but I couldn't find a good picture. But we'll see them all this weekend during Gather Round.
You didn't bring up the All 18 Club Gather Round Guernsey, so I could vomit.
That's why I didn't. Oh, actually, seeing you vomit on screen would actually be quite fun. Give me a second.
No, it's okay. We started off with Thursday Night Football.
Wait.
No.
Fair enough. There it is. You can't see it. Lucky you. Okay.
What a really useful exercise, least of all for me, but for our lovely viewers and listeners who tune, they're probably at work. You know, they might be thinking, oh, I need to go to the bathroom. I'll see what they're saying. And Liam just dribbles this utter nonsense in their ears.
Yeah, that's what I do, mate. That's what I do. Or at least I describe the jerseys. It wasn't just like being, come watch it on YouTube. You'll see them yourself or just Google it. Whatever's good. Jesse, let's start with round 4. Game 1 of round 4 as I adjust myself in my chair. At the MCG, the battle of all battles, the biggest rivals apparently in AFL, Collingwood 8-15-63, defeating Carlton 6-10-46 in front of 82,000 strong. That was a slog to watch, that game.
Yes.
It was a terrible game of football. But one thing that we can hold true for this is in 2025, Carlton have no second half capacity. They die in the second half, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, no, I watched this. I did. I sat on the couch with my broken ankle and I was looking at the screen and I was just like, these teams look like they don't know how to play footy. Like it was one of those games, those games you get where it's a bit of a scrap and it can go kind of either way. You can get a fun scrap. Some scraps are fun. This was not one of those. This was like two teams who are both bottom of the ladder. Like Collingwood weren't playing great either. Schultz had a really good game. It was nice to see Schultz have a good one for what? Funny, Schultz, I feel like I'm going off on tangents left, right, and centre. I told you, I'm unleashing all my energy on you, Jesse. I feel like Schultz is one of those players at Collingwood. I think I've said this before, where he'll have a cracker. He'll kick a wicked goal. He'll do stuff. And he'll get all pumped up and excited. And the rest of the players are kind of like, yeah, good job, Lockie. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I get this feeling that they don't really, don't give him the credit he deserves. Give Schultz some love. Come on.
We miss Schultz.
Can we come back, Schultz? What has Collingwood ever done for you?
Remember we replaced him with Tom Emmett?
Yeah, I do.
Oh. And Tom Emmett was really bad.
Yeah, he was. But no, DeConning was strong for Carlton again. I think Sard had a really good game as well in this one. Probably underlooked when you look at the AFL's best list, who go purely on touches and how many times you touch the ball. Because I'm pretty sure Charlie Curnow was on that list, and he had a shocking game. No, it wasn't shocking, but it wasn't the. And when I said Curnow, obviously I meant Cripps. Cripps still hasn't quite got his groove in this year, I don't think. His teammates making it hard for him. Let's put it that way. Jesse, the Scott Thornton enthusiast, what are your thoughts on this match?
I'm glad you saw that. I'm really glad we can add that in here. Look, a couple of points to make here. First of all, you talked about the quality of this game. It was not a very enthusing game of football to watch. But I think that really describes most of Carlton's games this season, with the exception of Richmond, because Richmond went on that tear. But have you enjoyed watching Carlton games this year? I can't safely attest that I have. And guess where they've all been, Liam? They've all been in primetime slots. What a great decision. What a fantastic idea.
They're meant to be getting better and good. They're meant to be. I would at the tail end of last year and looking at the fixture this year, I would be like, Carlton in primetime, that makes sense to me. But this year, I don't know what's going on with them.
It's quite disturbing. Some things to talk about here. Blake Acres, one of the Carlton's key ball winners, 57% disposal efficiency. That's not good enough. Cripps had very little ball on Thursday night, 56% disposal efficiency. Not good enough. What we're seeing from important players from Carlton is simply well below the standard of where they need to be if this team wants to be making finals. If I go through some key stats, Sam Walsh, I think, on balance, had his best game of the season by a considerable distance. 31 touches, used the ball well, distributed the ball quite well too. George Hewitt, I think, did well as well with his 29. Acres, we touched on with his 30, but terrible disposal. Like, if your disposal efficiency is barely over 50% and you're getting 30, so it's a decent sample size, you just call into question what's even the point of having the ball in your hand.
Well, this is what I've always wondered when it comes to like people talking up certain players in a win or loss, or like it just comes down to how many you've got, how many times you've touched the footy. Very rarely does it delve into the how good were you with that footy. You know, it just feels like if you have 30 touches, you've done well. You know what I mean? It just kind of feels how it is. But yeah, if you're going at 50% efficiency, I mean, you're probably more of a hindrance. Do you know what they should start doing? They should start doing like, you know, the NBA does the plus minus.
PER?
Well, it's like it's like plus minus. Like when you're on the field or when you're on the court, how much of an effect you had on the game, either in a positive or a negative. I think that'd be a really interesting thing. I mean, AFL has enough stats as it is. They probably don't need this one, but I think it'd be a really interesting thing to bring in to have it just to see how effective people are. Because when you got someone like Murphy Reid, for example, for Freo, we'll talk about later, probably didn't get many touches, but holy heck, how effective was he when he was in and around the ball? 30 touches and 50%. No thanks, don't want it.
Talking goals just quickly as well. Ollie Hollands with 2, George Hewitt with 2, Kerner with 1, Cripps with 1. First of all, he kicked 6 goals in a game of football.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Second of all, apart from Kerno, are you calling any of these guys recognised forwards? I'm not really calling Ollie Hollands a recognised forward. I'm definitely not calling Hewitt or Cripps recognised forwards. So Kerno's underperforming. Mackay's not there. Who's stepping up? We saw Kemp kick 5 last week.
Where Kemp?
Lewis Young was forward last week.
Where Lewis?
Jack Silvani, I actually don't know where he plays.
Yeah, honestly, though. It's true. It's actually a really good point. Because Jack Silvani looks like he's all over the ground all the time. It doesn't have like a sole spot that he plays. Like he's meant to be a defender. He's a good defender. He does push forward a bit, but because was he originally drafted as a forward? I can't remember. He was.
Which makes this a really difficult dilemma for Carlton because they just simply can't score.
Well, like,
and not only can't they score, but when Mackay and Kerner have played separately, they've both been well below the standard expected of Coleman medalists, well below, to the point where I don't look at a Kerner and Mackay forward line if I'm West Coast next week, or the prospect of a Kerner and Mackay forward line, and say, "Oh no."
No, and another team we'll talk about later has got the forward line perfectly correct, and it's a tale of it's a tale of two cities, I suppose. What it is in a way, but it was slippery. But even in slippery conditions, it just wasn't very good. But we should move on, Jesse. Unless there's anything else you'd like to add, let's move on to Friday at Goomba. That is GMHBA for the uninitiated. Geelong 12-13-85, defeating the Demons 6-10-46. Oh, yep. Again, not a great game of football. Geelong, honestly, Jesse, and I'm not too sure if you caught this one at all. You did, yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong. Geelong didn't look interested in that game at all. They were doing what they needed to do to win, of course, but there was just this level of apathy.
I think it was a complete lack of threat.
Yeah, just nothing
from Melbourne, who are limp at the moment. The Melbourne Football Club are unthreatening. They are limp, and they're going to struggle to win 6 games this season if they turn out these performances week in, week out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unfortunately, there's really not too much to add that game outside of that because, I mean, the D's threw everything they had at the Cats, but their skills and decision making were just horrific. And
this isn't a young whippersnapper.
No.
You know, good on you, Richmond. You're having a crack style team.
No.
Looking at let's read some of these names. Clayton Oliver.
Yes.
At one point considered probably a top 5 midfielder in the comp. Stephen May at one point probably considered a top 5 defender in the comp. Cozzy Pickett at one time considered one of the top 5 small forwards in the comp. Mm-hmm. Christian Petrarca at one point considered one of the top 5 players in the comp. Jack Bowie, potential $2 million Harley Reid in waiting. Christian Salem, very reliable, consistent defender. This is just on major ball winners, by the way. Max Gawn, at one point considered the best ruckman in the comp. Max Gawn could not be further away from looking like Max Gawn. at the moment. And I know there's been the narrative, which was not helped by Simon Goodwin, that there is something going on, with Max behind the scenes. And obviously, there needs to be a level of, I guess, diplomacy and discretion applied to that. But this is just not acceptable from senior players.
No.
And I'm surprised there's not more heat on Melbourne. Carlton are getting, probably rightfully bashed in the media for their dreadful start of the season. But, I think the expectations for Carlton were higher, but the performances from Melbourne have been appalling.
Yeah, it's a good point. They've kind of just slipped under the radar a little bit. I think, obviously, people are talking about them, but not with the same fervour as some of the other teams like Carlton, like you mentioned. But I want to touch on Petrarca really quickly, because obviously he was not a happy chappy at the end of the game. Like, as soon as the siren went, mouth guard out, threw it on the floor, visibly distressed. And you've mentioned this several times in the podcast before about how you see him as a consummate professional. Like, and if you're a consummate professional,
I call him a pathological winner.
A pathological winner. Okay. And so seeing him release that emotion, I think, kind of just establishes where it's at. I'll bring this up briefly because it kind of baffled me. And I chatted to you last night, but the On the Couch show on Fox was talking about, like, that, what is it? Dixon, Rewalt, Brown, and old mate Buckley. And they're all having this chat about how it's not a good look for Melbourne. I disagree. I think it's actually, like, that's what they need. They need someone to show a bit of passion, a bit of desire to actually want to win a game of football, because that's what they're lacking at the moment. And it just baffled me to hear these, three guys, Buckley was backing him up a little bit, but talking like, oh no, that's not what I would have done. Shows weakness, all this kind of stuff. It's absolute fucking bullshit. Like, let the man wants to win a game of footy, and he can see the writing on the wall with Melbourne at the moment. They're not playing great. And if you are a pathological winner and you can't win, guess what you're going to do? You're going to have a bit of a dummy spit, which I think is completely fine and justified. But if he can turn that into some sort of passion within the team to be like, come on, guys, come on, let's go. We got to do something here. Something's not working. Then that's fine. But I feel like it might be something a bit deeper, unfortunately. A bit deeper. Shall we move on, Jesse?
Let's.
Huzzah! Game of the round, easily. Round 4 at People First Stadium. You had the Suns 13-13-91 defeating the Adelaide Crows 14-6-90. 1-pointer in front of 16,211, which I actually think is not a terrible crowd for People First Stadium.
You know what? I know we like to, jest at the fact that Gold Coast have not been a very successful franchise FC imported to the league, but this is a genuine positive. That even with a result not guaranteed, you're playing a good side, but it's not a big market side up there. I wouldn't have thought. I think, if you're talking a Collingwood or a Carlton, you might have gotten that crowd regardless, but you still got to draw people in. I think right now Gold Coast are doing that. This is a big positive for them, and I hope they can continue to win games this season and hold those crowds.
100%. Your thoughts on this one, Jesse?
Fantastic game of football. But really, I think the only things to talk about is the last 2 minutes of this game for a number of reasons.
Isn't it a shame, though? It's such a shame.
It is.
This epic battle between these two really good sides comes down to what happened in the last 2 minutes. All right, what happened?
Well, first of all, the umpires really seemed to have a bad one, and we're not going to do conspiracy theories on this podcast. Now, it's fair to say Adelaide have not had the rub of the green in the last couple of seasons. They've had dodgy score reviews, terrible decisions on field, and whatever this was. Now, let's be clear. Rankin either marked that or was tackled without the ball.
Yep.
There's no situation where that's a clean spoil. Not a single one. I have really taken umbrage to Thilthorpe not getting a free kick for head-high contact from McAndrew late. The umpire is 3 metres away. I don't accept the argument that Thilthorpe has sealed himself into that contact. Andrews rushed forward.
Hey, that was my argument.
Andrews has rushed forward. He's led with the knee. Thilthorpe has his body over the ball. If we're serious about concussions, we're protecting the head. It's a free kick. It's not a very sensible tackling technique by Andrew anyway, given Thilthorpe is clearly in possession of the ball before that contact is about to occur. I thought that was, personally, more egregious than the no mark for Rankin, just given the fact that in the footage, you can see the umpire is 2 metres away, looking directly at Thilthorpe's head.
Yeah, and I feel like, speaking of McAndrew, kind of soured the game a little bit as well at the end with his antics, which is a bit of a shame, because at the end of the day, this was a really good game of football. We had the 3 big forwards of Adelaide between them. So Thilthorpe kicked, 5, I think it was? Yep. You had Big Tex kicked 4, I believe, and Fogarty kicked 3. So that's 12 a year, 14 goals. That's what a forward line's supposed to do, right?
Yep.
And then you got bit players coming in to do bits and bobs. That's huge. Like, that's a forward line that's functioning very well. And they're three players who, if they take a mark anywhere, they're probably going to slot it.
I mean, Fogarty just feels automatic at this point, doesn't
it? Yeah.
I think Fogarty, it up, go back to the middle.
Fogarty and Cripps are two, like for the Eagles, are the two at the moment who are just like, if they've got the ball,
Hogan as well.
Hogan as well. Yeah. Old Twinkle Toes. He's always going to, he had a big game as well. But, and not to mention Thilthorpe, which is, by the way, just the easiest name to say. Thilthorpe went the ruck as well. I think he had like 6 hit outs to advantage. All of them led to some sort of forward entry. Like, he just had an epic game. I think for McAndrew to kind of give him the old thumbs up in the face after the final siren.
Having been given a bath for most of the game.
Yes, 100%. Like, Thilthorpe was by far the best player on the ground, I would say. Or be up there at least.
He spent a bit of time on text too, and that didn't go very well.
No, so he didn't really have much too much to gloat about outside the 1 point win, I suppose. But
look, if this was a final, still not great, but go nuts. It's round 4.
Yeah, true.
You need to be a little bit humble here.
Yeah, I agree. Took Miller again, just showing he's looking at renewed lease of life at the moment.
Well, he just has help plan.
Yeah.
For the first time in years, apart from Rao's pre-shoulder season, he's actually got reliable help 23 games a year now. And it's not just a case of, Anderson's out, guess we're relying on Fiorini. No, we've actually got genuine ball magnets and players with elite skill in that Gold Coast midfield who can go and pick up the slack.
Could it be the year, Jesse? Could it be the year they finally get to September? I hope so.
Absolutely, it could be. I mean, you've won your first 4 games. Now, that doesn't guarantee you a final spot, but it gives you, A, 16 premiership points, and B, confidence to then go and build on that. You've also got a freebie in the last round of the season against Essendon, so you got 5 wins. I think there's really, and it's interesting to see now. We said at the time this game probably isn't going to impact finals. All of a sudden,
oopsie.
we don't know where Gold Coast are going to sit. They might be in a comfortable 5th and on the beach and play the Southport Sharks boys out for a week, or they might be 8th and need to win, or at least not be defeated by a certain amount for percentage to make finals.
Oh, could you imagine? That'd be a talking point all unto itself. But no, great game, cracker of a game. If you haven't had a chance to go and watch this one, at least get the mini. It's pretty goddamn good. Let's move on to the next game. We had the Tigers 13-12-90 defeated by the Brisbane Lions 18-10, 118 in front of 42,578 at the G. Plucky old effort from the Tigers, wasn't it, Jesse?
Yes, and can I just say something off the top here?
Sure.
I really disliked some of the patronising narratives thrown at Richmond this week. Oh, you did so well. Oh. Give them the 4 points. They got within 5 goals of the reigning.
Who's doing that?
I think Gorringe floated that one. But I really wish he had just an off button, a permanent off button. I know this is very old man yells at Cloud, but I just don't think he's very funny.
That's fine. You're entitled to not think that something's funny, Jesse. That's okay.
I do. I acknowledge that there's a market for reactionary, over-the-top football fans. Mark Goldbridge is a great example in soccer who's made that market his own. So I do get where the appeal comes from, and it is a unique twist having an ex-player be that. But you've got to land your jokes. And his landing's going about as well as that A380 at Perth Airport last week that couldn't get on the ground because of the wind. And had to go to Melbourne. Just got to land him.
Such an airport aficionado, Jesse. I had no idea. Let's talk about the footy.
Yes.
So the footy. Yes. Did you catch this one, Jesse?
I did. A bit of a come down from the previous game. Now I will say this: I know you did a lot of the slack with the best and the takeaways this week, Liam, and I thank you for that. But how Neil didn't get your first billing of 42 touches?
Oh, that's no like.
It's in no apparent order. Okay, mine are always in order when I do them.
Fair enough.
Okay, so fair enough. But in that case, we'll start with Neil. Brilliant game. Absolutely brilliant game. There's been a lot of narratives. I think we talked about last week that he's drawing so much attention that he's worth keeping in the side even when he's getting 15, 18, 20 disposals when he gets off the leash. And I don't think Richmond are the type of team to play clamp. I think they're a team that want to go and have a crack for themselves and develop their system under Uze. The byproduct of that is, you let a guy like Neil, Dunkley had a very big game as well. You let these guys off the leash, they're going to punish you. McCluggage had a phenomenal game. You don't see many guys go and get 26 touches, 2 goals in the modern game. That's Gary Ablett Jr. stuff. And if you can replicate that across the season, good luck getting a Brownlow anywhere away from him. That's the type of games that are elite. Both Ashcrofts, I felt, had good games. Both Ashcrofts hit the scoreboard, which was nice as well. Brisbane continued to function with what I still would not call an optimal forward line. And it remains to be seen if and when that's going to come back to bite them. But right now, it's working. Let's talk Tigers. Sam Lawler, justifying his number 1 pick week in, week out. He looks phenomenal. Really impressed with Harry Armstrong's game too. A lot of command for the ball, I felt, from a young player. I know it's a bit easier in a team where everyone's young, but he looked like he was commanding a lot more than he had been in previous weeks. And he looks like he's starting to grow into that role of I could be the next big forward target for the Richmond Football Club, and I can go and command that position for a number of years. Seth Campbell is still having probably the most underrated season in the comp. It doesn't help that he's on a low-level team in terms of premiership points and expected premiership points, but he's kicking 2, 3, 4 goals a week. He's not your atypical. He's not your typical target. He's very atypical in that regard, and he's getting the job done. A lot for Richmond still to work on. They're going to be likely bottom 4 this season. That's not a shock to anyone. But in saying that, and I think I made this point, I don't know if it was in the draft episode or the season preview episode, Liam, but don't be surprised if Richmond's rebuild isn't a 5-year project like some of the others.
Well,
because they have aggressively cleared the decks, and you're already starting to see some early dividends. I know it's been a big week for the share market, but some early dividends being paid on players like Lawler, players like Armstrong. You're blooding the kids, guys like Smith. Sonzi, I know, wasn't in this class, but you're getting returns out of these young guys.
Yeah, I was actually going to pose a question like, how do you think they're going to look in a few years' time, given that they're literally starting a team basically from fresh for the most part, and some of the kids they've got coming through are already great.
And you know what? When you build a project, which is what this is, players stay.
Yeah. Look
at Philly in the NBA when they couldn't win a championship, but they were still a project side, and they retained players like Joel Embiid because the belief was there. You build a project, you make a concept that's not about role playing and backwards kicking and boredom, and you give people buy-in.
Yeah. I'm excited to see where they go, the Tigers, in the next few years. I reckon they've still got a couple of upsets up their sleeve this year as well, but we'll see when they come. Let's move on to the next game. Jesse. This one was disappointing. Saturday night at Marvel Stadium, North Melbourne 8-4-52, defeated by Sydney 18-9, 117 in front of 31,955. Look, I mean, you tipped the Kangas in this one because you felt like they were going really well. And when you tipped them, I was just like, oh man, that's a good point. Which is why I think this is probably double disappointing, because they were showing some really good signs. And I'm not too sure if it's a case of Sydney are starting to work it out now under the Cox banner, or if it's a case of they just had a really off night when it comes to how they function as a team this year, because they were looking really good to start this year. Obviously not the wins on the board, but at least looking they were going in the right direction. This was a bit of a step back.
Yeah, and look, tipping result aside, this was my biggest disappointment of the weekend. I really had bought into the gains that we'd seen from North Melbourne in the first month of the season, and this, while it's not end of days and they've got an experienced enough list now to kind of paper over this was really disappointing. And it's not like key players, I don't think, had off nights. Maybe you could throw in Cherry, I guess, if you want to be really mean, but there's been injury clouds and issues with him. Like, Sheasel had 34 touches, I think used the ball really well. ODU was busy with 25. Their experienced recruits, Parker and Daniel, were two of their biggest ball winners as well. It was disappointing. It was really disappointing. In saying that, though, it's not time to lose hope with North. I generally just look at this and think it was a really off night. Now, I'm doubtful to go in and truckload them in confidence points next week, having seen their performance on Saturday, which let's not mince words. It was pretty terrible from North, and I think it disappointed a lot of people. But overall, I feel like they're trending in the right direction. They're just going to have to brush this off. Sydney looked the best they have all season by a considerable distance, but it remains to be seen whether that was right team, right time, or they're starting to get the best out of themselves under Dean Cox.
Yeah, be interesting to see and gather around, because I'm not too sure who they've got, but I'm pretty sure it's not an easy one. We'll get to that later. But once I get to those upper echelon teams, it'll be interesting to see where they are. Not to say Freo aren't, but I think Freo was an interesting old game that it could have gone either way. So we'll see. I think once I get to a Giants or a Hawks, then the true test will be there. Anything else to add about this one, Jesse, before we move on? Big shake of the head.
Big shake of the head.
All right, let's go to Sunday. A couple of things here. NG Stadium. Giants wiped the floor with the Eagles as expected, 20-12-132. Eagles 7-9-51 in front of 9,231 people. They couldn't crack the 10K at NG Stadium. Now, the game itself is what it is. We knew what was going to happen in this game.
Yeah.
Obviously, Hogan kicking 9 and then 9 straight. And then with his last kick in the last 2 minutes of the game for his 10th, absolutely sprayed it.
This history will show 9 straight.
That's true. That's true. Accurate man.
And the great scholars of our time, aka me and the Bev Show, will look back on this with great fondness, I'm sure. I'm sure. It's not quite 10 though, No.
It's not quite 10. So
do you apply a tariff to modern era forwards and kind of bump them up a bit?
Well, because it's not the 14 that Scotty Cummings could kick back in the day, or the 17, or the
Peter Hudson 17. No,
no tariffs here, mate.
No
I'm not
tariffs
talking about that. No tariffs here. He didn't kick 10. That's the end of it. No, we'll talk about this next week. Darcy Jones was fantastic again. The little fella going absolutely bananas. Green. I put the little brackets with the E on the end in the graphic there because both of them were good. That was very cheap. I got 4 for the price of 3. Thank you very much. It was just a bit of a masterclass. The tsunami was coming in waves. It just never stopped. Just like the handball run and gun they had. Eagles didn't know what to do. The poor buggers. They had no clue. Not a clue. Thoughts, Jesse?
A few. First of all, the crowd.
Yeah.
It's disappointing after a decade plus, and a team that has been significantly better than the other franchise FC that was imported up north, that we still can't crack 10,000.
Yeah.
Now, I acknowledge that West Coast are not a big market team in New South Wales. That is fine. But you're a team in that state, in the top tier of competition. There will be waffle games this season that will get 7,500, 8,000. There are, people love to stick the boot into A-League crowds about their terrible attendance. You get more than that at a Melbourne Victory game.
Yeah, 100%.
It's simply not good enough. And
you'd get more than that in Canberra.
Yes, you would. You get a lot more in Canberra. The thing is that NG's holds 22, It holds above 20, so we can't even fill half the ground. It's not like we're doing. Well, I suppose if you average it out, it's not as bad as Melbourne getting 22 at the G, but it's still pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad when the camera mics and the mics are on the ground. Big games, like I was watching Freo and Dogs on the TV this week. It was very loud. It was very loud. You could hear it. It's the loudest I think I've ever heard of Freo. Yeah, well, I could see you actually. I saw you on the telly. Oh. But you could. That's what you could hear. You hear the joint voices of the crowd. The Giants game, you can hear that one guy going, "Yeah, on the ball, you bastard." You know what I mean? And that's how you know that the crowd is big, when you can hear one guy.
Kick it to Toby.
Kick it to Toby. It's a shame. It's a shame because you'd think, despite who they're playing, you could probably pull in a crowd. I still maintain that the location of that stadium is dog piss, and probably does lead into people not going. But still, if you like your footy team, you'll go. You'll go through. Injuries pending. All right. Anything else to say about this one, Jesse?
Yeah, Hogan phenomenal. I didn't like Sandy Brock being given that task. It feels like a case of we have something to protect here, and we're just going to sacrifice him. I don't see this as a learning experience. Like, you can say, he won the Coleman last year. He's easily one of the best key forwards in the comp. It's all right. Chin up. You'll be better next week. But 9 goals in the modern era is a lot of goals.
Mm-hmm.
To see that ball fly over your head 9 times on your AFL debut, and I know he's been in the system for a while, but on his AFL debut, that's not going to do him any favours.
No.
It was a disappointing move, I felt, to give him that task. And I appreciate the argument of, well, who else? But Harry Edwards. I know he had a bad game. He's had a bad start to the season, but he's got defensive experience. I can't imagine he would have done worse.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. And I never thought about it that way, because that's going to be a bit of a damner on your AFL kind of mindset when you're getting absolutely pantsed in your first game. But any winners for the Eagles at all? I mean, I got Baker, Marich, and Marek. I say Marich because that's the Croat in me. Marek and Cripps in there. Anyone else stand out for you?
Thought Harley had a better game off half back.
Yeah.
Tim Kelly is simply. I honestly think if they've got to make the call and give him a spell in the seconds.
Well, I know a lot of Eagles fans who are saying him and Oscar.
Look, take it, because we can say it with at least a different bias to West Coast fans. I feel like we have a bias when it comes to West Coast. Obviously, we're favourite fans, but I feel like we can be a bit more, and we try to be as very analytical and reasonable as we can on this podcast.
100%.
Tim Kelly has not done himself any favours with his off-season interview, declaring he's fallen out of love with the game. He's barely cracked 20 disposals at any point this season. He's looked disinterested. He's never been a two-way runner, but it's even worse than it's ever been now. I don't see what he's actually adding. If Harley was playing midfield minutes consistently, I'd say, yeah, look, keep him in, that's fine. But he's going off half back now. So, and honestly, would you even put your best midfielder on Kelly anymore? I don't think I would. I'd be looking at someone like Edwards or Baker.
Yeah.
Sorry, Graham or Baker, apologies, to go and fill that void. But I don't see what Tim Kelly's adding, apart from, well, we're paying and we may as well be playing.
Yeah. Yeah, which I guess is a good reason, I suppose. I'm not sure. Yeah, no, it was a bad one for the Eagles. I mean, the commentators loved it. Every time they put Harley into the center, they lost their minds. He's still got some draw, that kid. He's still got some draw. Let's move on to the next game. Your game at the round. At Adelaide Oval, redacted 10-12-72, defeated by, Port Adelaide, 10-12-72, defeated by St Kilda, 13-11-89, who just continue to keep winning games.
They do.
In front of 34,201. Well, I mean, what do you got to say about this one, Jesse?
Let's start with the good. Port Adelaide's Guernsey.
Oh God, how good is that?
Because it reminds me of some of my first footy cards. I can see Brendan Lade, Dean Brogan, Kane Corns wearing that Guernsey, and it fills me with great happiness. Apart from that, I mean, Jason Horne-Francis had a great game for Port, but he can't do it on his own, guys. It's time to start calling out players that were in the Port Adelaide jumper. Connor Rosie is woefully underperforming. he has not recovered from his final series last year. He is nowhere near the standard that we expect of him. Zach Butters, rushed back from injury, has a very big game. I don't know what else more he can do. Port seem like they've got a very soft underbelly at the moment, and it's really starting to affect them. And the problem now becomes if good players getting dragged into that, like Rosie, there's a long way back from there. I'm really concerned about Port now this season. Now, you look at our preseason predictions, I think we both had Port close to the top 4. That spot's wide open, isn't it?
Yeah.
That spot is wide open for the taking. St Kilda, look, they're winning games, and they're doing it in a way that we hadn't seen from them. Now, the news today was Max King will miss more time due to another injury in preseason. Another injury during training. So more time without Max King.
Best thing for him.
They may never lose again. It's pretty clear that Jack McRae was a case of, yes, he was undervalued for St Kilda to pick up. They did very well with that recruitment. But it was very much a case of new lease on life, fresh start, watch him go. And he's performing brilliantly for them. Darcy Wilson is continuing to grow, looks like a very solid player. And they've got ins coming back too as well. They've got players waiting in the wings that can come in and have an impact. So I think for St Kilda, real reasons to be positive. The key thing for them now is keeping momentum. We don't want to see them fall into mistakes of previous seasons where they've just gotten stuck in the mud. They've gone to a plan B that is way too defensive and they just can't win games with consistency.
Yeah. I mean, this one, they got off to a cracking start in this one. I think about 6 goals ahead or something like that.
Yeah, they were dominant early.
Hugely dominant. And then obviously Port chipped away back. And in the end, just wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. And Saints win again. All right, let's finish it up, Jesse. We've got one more game to talk about. And it's this one. Oh, it's small. Barbara Howard, Shooter, Print, Round 4 ends Round 4 ends at Optus Stadium. Dockers 15-7-91, defeating the Bulldogs 12-9-81 in an absolute battle of attrition. Oh my word. Felt like every single player out there was just dying. It's just like they all looked, because obviously I had to watch from home this week. And so I got the benefit of seeing them up close on the telly box.
Oh, and you could tell they were gassed.
Oh, from your seats?
Yeah, hawked over.
Absolute
They ran
gas.
a crampy in the last quarter. The poor trainers were sprinting across the field with pickle juice to try to revive Shea Bolton and Jai Miss.
Hey, the pickle juice is going to get... Can you buy stocks in pickle juice? Because that'd be going through the roof this season. My goodness gracious me.
Do we now have to slap it? This is not financial advice on this podcast because we've talked about stocks and tariffs 3 times.
Look, if people take any of that as actual advice, then good on them. Go for it. Go for gold. Do your best.
No. because ASIC will yell.
Okay.
They're very strict on financial influences, and I don't want them yelling at me.
Oh, God. If anyone calls us financial influencers, that's their problem. And that's their fault. But look, I'm actually quite proud of the boys. I think holding on to this one with both Jackson and Noddy and Warner and...
Well, Warner was playing.
I thought it was... Who was the sub? Was Wagner the sub or Warner the sub?
Warner was subbed on for
Wagner, yes. They both are the same person in my head.
Do you Warner Wagner or Wagner Warner?
Well, that's just a philosophical question I'm not ready for right now, Jesse. I need time to prepare that one. All injured. Unfortunately, Noddy is going to be out for a few months by the looks of it, which is a big shame.
Huge blow.
Huge blow. And Jacko for a few weeks at least. But that's next week's problem. This was a really gutsy win. I'm loving seeing Harley Reid. Oh, fuck, I did it again. Murphy Reid. Bruce, I'm just going to call him Bruce. Bruce and Dudley, the 2 small fellas. God, when they're around the ball, they look like they've been doing this for years. Yeah. And it's really, really wonderful to see. Like, they don't give. Dudley doesn't care if he's 4 foot nothing. He's in and around it and he's getting it done. His snaps for goal are something that we haven't seen for a long time, which is wonderful to have in that forward line. Bit of extra danger. Sarong and Brayshaw, quarter time he texted me and said 3 touches each to quarter time, not good enough. Boy, how did they turn it around?
Didn't they?
Jesus Christ.
They must have got my tweet.
Yeah, J-Lo's got you on live feed, mate. Don't you worry about it.
I'm convinced that's what he's on his computer in the whole time. Tap, tap, tap. What's Jesse saying about me? Tap, tap, tap. Oh, Alt tab, got to go back and play my Sims. Tab, tab, tab.
And Tracy again, fantastic. Yeah. Darcy, Mike, That boy, holy moly, he is going to be an absolute star for years to come. He is nigh on, well, I was going to say nigh on unbeatable, but when you're playing Alex Pearce, maybe. But I think Drapes did a pretty good job on him when they dropped him back.
It took way too long to make that change, though, and that's poor coaching. And it's stubborn, arrogant coaching to not make that change earlier. Because Sam Darcy gave Alex Pearce an absolute bath to the point where I've seen people say Pearce had a good game. Pearce had a good game the second he moved off Sam Darcy.
Yeah.
He simply, as a defender, could not compete. And he relied a lot on help from Cox and Draper, more so than probably what you'd expect from Pearce. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. It was a very good thing that Cox and Ryan both had games much more befitting their standard than what we've seen so far from them this season. But look, let's go through some players here for free. I mean, we'll come to the Bulldogs too, don't worry. You mentioned Caleb and Andy, both brilliant games from them. Geordie Clark got off the chains. They've had the clamps on him a lot this season. He finally got his ability to rebound off halfback, and it made a difference. Jeremy Sharp, he's had a poor couple of weeks, carried some knocks, carried some issues. But one thing I noticed from Sharp this week was how composed he was compared to what I think we've seen from him at other points. Maybe it's a case of needed more time to settle or needed that surety of, no, I am best 22 in this side, while there was kind of swirling about, is he going to be dropped, is he in or out? I think he had a really good game. Murphy Reid, you mentioned. Tracy was huge. Look, people have been a bit at Jai, and I don't think he's been up to the standard as he was in 23 since his concussion in the Derby last year against West Coast. But his performance is very contingent on, are his leads rewarded? Mm-hmm. And they were in the Derby this season. They weren't on Sunday. And that's why he ends up with 1 goal and 7 touches. He was working very hard, although it was very frustrating with about, I don't know the exact game clock because we have count up at the game, but about 7 minutes to go, I would say. Jai gets a mark on the wing. Bolton is screaming into open space, and Jai just turns his back, walks back, takes his full 15, backwards pass. That's not sustainable long-term football, especially when the pressure was still very much on. And it's stuff like that that's still, despite the win and despite the fact it was a massive character-building win for the footy club, it still makes me really worried about who's controlling the strings in the coach's box, because you get the sense that the Dogs wasted opportunities. They were the better side for disposals. They were the better side for inside 50s. James Harms made that point post-game, that Dockers didn't win the game, we lost it. And while I think that's an unfair characterization of the fact that Freo kicked 15 goals and played the best football they have in that second quarter for a very long time, but he's ultimately got a point. And I still don't think tactically, and some of the interchanges in the last quarter were just bizarre. It was all over the place.
Yeah. What about Show?
I'm still concerned, Liam. I'm still concerned.
I know you are. It's just it's your natural being. I was up and about for this win. It was very nice. It was interesting seeing, before we moved to the Bullies, people saying that Shea Bolton is starting to find his groove, which I agree. I think is a nice little live wire through the ground that we do need. His decision making has been questionable,
yes,
to say the least.
But you know what? I can live with poor decision making from an X Factor player. I really can.
Sure.
Shea Bolton was not recruited to Fremantle to have 30 touches a game with elegant poise and precise delivery. He is there to change games. Shea Bolton changed that game. Yep. I'm totally up for giving those type of players a bit of leniency. Shea is a great example. Players like Toby Green, I think you throw in that bracket as well. They make things happen.
Yeah. All right, let's talk some Bullies. Unfair to not talk about them a little bit. We've spoken about Darcy, that champion. Who else had great games for you that you saw?
Look, let's start with some mixed results. I think Tim English, on paper, had a great game, but I also felt was bullied fairly consistently. Roy Lobb had a very good game defensively.
He actually did.
He looks like a 250-game veteran back there, completely composed. I thought Berkshire Karmas had a really good game too, defensively.
Oh, did you?
I did. despite throwing the ball and limply falling to the ground on a Freddie tackle and the umpire going play on.
There was one where he just grabbed it, didn't do anything, and Andrew literally, Brayshaw, put his arm around him softly. He didn't even try to get rid of it, and the umpire called ball up. And Andy's like, come on, he's not even trying anyway.
But I think Karmas is a really useful option as a third defender.
Yeah, I don't think he had a great game. Watching it on the television, like it didn't look like he had his best. His best, yeah.
I thought that Liberatore, obviously, and Kennedy as well, both had very solid games, but they're missing some of these guys. Norton was poor for them. I think Fraser probably had an off game for him compared to what we've seen so far this season. So I think that they're also looking a bit tired. I felt the Doggies. I've spent that whole last quarter waiting for the onslaught to really start, and it just didn't come.
Yeah, no, it's a good win for Freo. They definitely needed that. Obviously, we don't do well in close ones, so it was nice to get that one across the line. Moving on into gather round, Jesse. Let's call it there, mate. Let's call it there. We got some tipping to do.
We do. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into the Centimetre Perfect AFL podcast. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your neighbours. Go down to the local gym, pump some weights, and tell the person next to you, really obnoxiously, that the podcast you're listening to through your ears is the Centimetre Perfect AFL podcast, and no, you can't spot them. Until next week, enjoy it, and we'll see you soon on the Centimetre Perfect AFL podcast.
Bye, everybody.